Hi, boys and girls. I can't tell if this is recording or not, but I think it is. Okay, I'm going to pause it. Okay. Hi, boys and girls. Okay, let's start this again. Today we're starting the metric units of measurement, and I think that you will find them to be maybe a little bit easier because there's not a lot of memorization of vocabulary, and the customary measurements that we use and that we did in those prior lessons. Those are customary is used in the United States, and boy, it's kind of tricky because you have to memorize a lot of different words, a lot of vocabulary and terms that go with the different customary measurements. But what you'll find in the metric system is that there's a lot of prefixes that will hold true whether you're talking about metric units of length or of weight or of liquid volume. So as you see, as we go through these, I think you'll be a little bit more familiar and understand the terms a little bit better. So today we're going to do measurement of length and metric units of length. And of course, we're talking about, basically a straight line, right? We're measuring from point A to point B, as in like a line segment or something. So let's just look real quick at some of the vocabulary. So we have meters, and that is represented by a small m, decimeters, dm, centimeters, cm, and millimeters, mm. And these, again, are all metric units of length. And what I like to do is give myself a little visual chart. So you might want to take a minute, maybe even pause the video, and go ahead and make this in your journal or on a scrap piece of paper, because this is something that maybe will be useful to you as you're working through some of these problems. And just to have the bigger understanding that a meter is our main unit here, right? It's in 1 meter, which, by the way, you may have used in some science experiments in school to measure some things, and even in math if you've been doing that already. And it's that wooden stick that we have with all the measurements on it. It also has inches on it, but it's really called a meter stick. So you may have, again, like I said, seen that in school. Well, here's our 1 meter stick. And in a meter, there are 10 decimeters. Deci is the prefix that means 10. In 1 meter, there are 100 centimeters. So centi means 100. And in a meter stick, there are 1,000 millimeters. So milli means 1,000, like in millennium, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to look at measurements and conversions using decimeters, centimeters, and millimeters. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do that. So the first thing I want to show you is that 1 decimeter is 1/10 of the meter. So this is what it looks like as a fraction, and this is what it would look like as a decimal number. And because there are 100 centimeters in a meter, 1 of those centimeters is 1/100th of the whole meter, and as decimal number, that's what that would look like. And I'll show you this one, although we haven't really done anything up to the thousandths place. This is what the fraction would look like, 1 out of 1,000 if we were talking about 1 millimeter. And as my decimal, it would be this. Pretty cool. So you might make this diagram and find it useful as you're working through these problems. So I'm going to put this to the side. And given that, we're going to do this together. Given that information, we know that in 1 meter, there are 10 decimeters. So each one of those decimeters is 1/10 of the meter. We just did this before, but I'm going to write it again. We know that there are 100 centimeters in a meter. So each centimeter is 1/100th. written as a fraction, written as a decimal. Let's move on. If we have 51 centimeters, so since there are 100 centimeters in a meter, our denominator is 100. And now we're talking about 51 out of the 100. So 51 hundredths, or of course, as a decimal, there we go. 8 decimeters. Well, there are 10 decimeters, so my denominator is going to be 10. 8 tenths of a meter, and as a decimal, we would write it like that. 82 centimeters. Again, there were 100 centimeters in a meter, so 82 hundredths, and 82 hundredths written as a decimal. So that's how you're going to do it if they're asking you to find the fractional part, or you can record it as a decimal of a meter, All right, let's move on a little bit. Okay, we will probably have this as something that you can refer to in the Google document, but again, it's basically this in this form, right? Written out like this. So 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters. 1 decimeter is equal to 10 centimeters. But this is the one to really take a look at. If you can memorize this, or if you can work with this, you've got it. So again, 10 decimeters in a meter, 100 centimeters in a meter, 1,000 millimeters in a meter. Wonderful. Now I want to show you a way that you can use the idea of fractions, and writing these out as fractions is really helpful. I really like this idea. So if I'm asked to go from 2 meters, so 2 meters is equal to how many centimeters? Well, I know that 1 meter is 100 centimeters. So that's going to help me know that 2 meters is 200 centimeters. And I could also think of it like this, as if I were making kind of equivalent fractions here. So I could do, well, 1 times 2 gets me to 2 meters, and 100 times 2 would get me to 200 centimeters. So think of it a little bit like making equivalent fractions, and I find that to be very helpful. 3 centimeters, and I'm going from centimeters to millimeters. Well, I know that in 1 centimeter, there are 10 millimeters. So if I'm asked to figure out, well, what is 3 centimeters then? 3 centimeters is how many millimeters? Well, I multiplied this by 3, so I'm going to multiply this by 3. 10 times 3 would be 30. So this would be 30 millimeters. Let me go back up and write that one. Okay, let's do it on this one here. 5 decimeters is how many centimeters? Well, in 1 decimeter, there are 10 centimeters. So 5 decimeters would be times 5 times 5, 50 centimeters. Okay, now I might take some scrap paper to do this next one. So now I'm asked to compare these using the less than, greater than, or equal to sign. Okay, 4 meters, 40 decimeters. So I'm just going to write it like this. Well, I know that in 1 meter, there are 10 decimeters. So in 4 meters, there should be 40 decimeters. 40 decimeters. So this is equal. Those are equal. How about this one here? 5 centimeters? Well, in 1 centimeter, there are 10 millimeters. So in 5 centimeters times 5 times 5, there should be 50 millimeters. So clearly 5 centimeters is much bigger than only 5 millimeters. It should be 50 millimeters. So 5 centimeters is much bigger. I would put my greater than sign there. Okay? All right. Let's try this one. I can pull this down a little bit, I guess. 6 decimeters compared to 65 centimeters. Well, in 1 decimeter, there are 10 centimeters. So in 6 decimeters times 6 times 6, there should be 60 centimeters. Well, this has 65 centimeters. That's bigger than 60 centimeters. So 65 centimeters is bigger than 6 decimeters. 7 meters, 700 millimeters. In 1 meter, there should be 1,000 millimeters. So in 7 meters, there should be, you guessed it, 7,000 millimeters. This says only 700 millimeters. So clearly, 7 meters is bigger. All right. Now let's take a look at this. 65 centimeters. I'm going to read the directions, sorry. Describe the length in meters. Write your answer as a fraction and as a decimal. So we're going to write our fraction first and then our decimal. Fraction, decimal. Here we go. 65 centimeters in the length is what fractional part of a meter? Okay, here's how I do that. I know that there are 100 centimeters, so that's my denominator in this fraction. And I'm going to say, okay, 65 hundredths, or, and let's just write it as a decimal, 65 hundredths. So 65 centimeters is 65 hundredths of a meter. 9 decimeters. I know there are 10 decimeters in a meter. That's where I get my denominator. So 9 out of those 10, or 9/10, there's my fraction. And we know how to write 9/10 as a decimal number. 47 centimeters, fractional part of a meter. Well, there are 100 centimeters in a meter. That's my denominator. So 47 hundredths, and written as a decimal, 47 hundredths. 2 decimeters. There are 10 decimeters in a meter. So 10 is my denominator. 2/10, or as a decimal, 2/10. Okay. Keep working hard. You guys are amazing. I always say it. Watch the video again if you need to, and know that we're all thinking of you. Bye. You've got this. We've got this together. Let me see if I can stop the video now. Haha. I might have to keep talking. All right, here we go. Stop recording.